Hi everyone! Welcome back to Mom Abroad. I'm really excited to film my second installment of my YouTube page or vlog or whatever it is. People have been asking me what I call it, and I don't know. It's not really for me. I think of a blog as for the person who writes it or vlogs it, and I think of this as for anyone else who might be finding the information useful. So I'm not exactly sure what to call it, so I'm just going to call it my YouTube channel for now, and we can work out the details later, I guess. But I am here on this gorgeous day to talk about first impressions. This one is just for me to kind of put out there what I think of Korea now that I've moved here with basically no knowledge of what Korea is before getting here, apart from what I learned on YouTube. I did read a little bit. I read a couple of books that I can share with you. I can link them down below if you guys want to see them. They're both really, really good. They were smart purchases, and I'm glad I got them. But one was about business etiquette here in Korea, because I am having to work with a lot of Koreans, particularly on things like, you know, etiquette and protocol and things like that. That's mostly what I do between America and Korea. So it was really important for me to kind of have that baseline. And the other one is about the culture of Korea and just what to expect in terms of I don't know, when you're interacting with people and day-to-day life and the history and how that has evolved to create the culture that is in Korea today. So as I had mentioned before, I am by no means whatsoever an expert on this. I don't even claim to be an expert on Michigan, and that's where I'm from. So I would never, ever, ever put that out there that I am any kind of expert or have any kind of subject matter expertise on Korea. I just live here. I see what I see, I experience what I experience, and that is the one and only thing that I want to put out for the world to see, is just my opinion, my expectations, my way of interacting with Korea, and how I feel like Korea interacts back. So please do not, take this to think that I am claiming anything except for my own observations. As a mom, as an employee, as someone who lives in Yongsan, as someone who recently moved here and doesn't know the language, that's basically where I'm coming from. So I think that actually fits a lot of people who move to Korea, so that's why I'm hoping to put this information out there and see what, if any of it, is useful. So take it, leave it, tell your friends, whatever you want. Write, down below, and tell me what you think, and ask me for, I just punched myself in the face a little bit. Ask me for, certain things you want to hear or whatever. Doesn't matter. All right, so first impressions of Korea. I have been here for 3 months, so I can't say they're like first impressions, like just got off the plane. But with 3 months under my belt, my general feeling about Korea is this. 1, super kid-friendly. And I don't mean that just in like the infrastructure is kid-friendly, because the infrastructure isn't always kid-friendly. It definitely isn't always stroller-friendly in particular, but kid-friendly in that they love children. Now, this is going off of just my observations by myself, but particularly white children, blonde-haired, and blue eyes. Just so happens that's the exact description of my son. So he has gotten an awful lot of attention, which he has now decided he is going to eat up with a spoon and just relish in, even as a 15-month-old. He has become quite the ham for the attention that he gets. So by that I mean, when we walked off the plane, day 1, we walked off the plane and we stopped at Incheon Airport, where the first set of bathrooms was after baggage claim. And I was standing there with my son, and an old man was sitting an old Korean man, was sitting on the benches, and he saw Declan and looked at me and looked at Declan again and just put out his arms like this, as if I was going to give him my son to hold or to play with or whatever. I don't know whether it was the jet lag or the 16-hour flight or what, but I was so taken aback by that. And I had heard that they were very, very into kids and very like friendly and open and not to be thought of as like scary or threatening or anything like that. So I'm glad that I had that knowledge going in. But I was so, that's just not something you would ever do in the United States that I've ever seen. A complete stranger put out their arms for another person's baby to hold them. So it's not like I was talking to him or, you know, having a lengthy conversation or anything like that. I literally had no knowledge of this person. So my son and I politely waved and then went about our business. So I really didn't know what to make about that. I've been here for 3 months and I still don't know what to do when that happens. You'll also see and experience a lot of kissing of babies that aren't theirs, feet, hands in particular, but sometimes heads and faces. Depending on how squeamish you are about germs, that might be something that you want to find some polite corrections of. And remember that these are not meant to be threatening. They're meant to be purely endearing. They truly just love children that much, and they just can't get enough. So that I would say is a definite first impression of Korea. Second first impression of Korea, and I'm literally making these up as I go. I don't have notes written down. You might see me glancing at my notebook, but I literally have nothing written down for this. I'm speaking off the cuff here. So, I find Korea to be actually quite clean. Seoul in particular to be quite clean. Obviously it's a big city. There's going to be litter and things like that every once in a while, but I have definitely been to major cities, even in the United States, that are far, far dirtier, more cluttered than they are here. So I would say that it's a definite plus for being here. And that's just something I just noticed straight away. The infrastructure is amazing here. Most importantly, I would say public transportation, and you'll probably hear that again and again and again from people, because it is mind-boggling how ours is so far behind in the United States in terms of the public transport. I don't know. I feel like many countries do it better than we do, and I think Korea does it better than most. So between the subways and the buses, they have airport shuttles that actually have pickups throughout the city, and then will just take you on this like beautiful like charter type bus all the way to the airport for a fraction of what it would cost to be in a cab. And they come, like where we live, it almost comes right to our door is one of the stops. So that's pretty amazing. First impression of the food is incredible. I was really excited to try the food when I came here, and the more I have, the more I like. So, and we're really fortunate on Yongsan base, for those of you who are going to Yongsan, which won't be very many of us anymore since everything is moving to Humphreys and Yongsan is closing in the next 2 to 3 years. We have these snack bars. They're called snack bars. They're I think they were built for Koreans, for the Korean Katusas is what they're called. The Korean nationals who work for our U.S. military, because military service in Korea is mandatory. You're conscripted. So you can choose, if you get selected, to work with the U.S. military, and that's a highly coveted position for them. So anyway, that was a tangent, but there are several restaurants on Yongsan that are just Korean restaurants, and they're like Korean fast food essentially, and they're really good and a really cheap, yummy option for during the day. So that's kind of nice for us to have, because it allows us to, with very little risk or effort, get Korean food every couple of days. So yeah, Korean food, 2 thumbs way up. Tteokbokki is my favorite. I can't get enough of it. I think I'm starting to get addicted to spice because the spices here are pretty out of control. But I think it's worth it. It's pretty delicious. I can do a favorite food episode if you guys want to see that. It might require a little bit of coordination because I'd love to show you what it all looks like, but there is a YouTube channel called Sweet and Tasty TV, which it was pretty much my mainstay for every YouTube video that I looked at before coming here. I started following Mina O and her channels, and Sweet and Tasty TV in particular, because I like the style that she does on that channel. And so if you want Korean food, that's definitely the channel to look into. She covers it all, and does it really, really well. So shout out to Mina. She's here a lot of the time in Korea, and I've thought about what I would do if I actually ran into her. I'd like to think that I'd be cool, relaxed. Oh, hi Mina. I've watched your videos. You're very good. I have a feeling I would probably drop whatever I was holding and just split in the opposite direction because I would be way too starstruck. That's probably what would happen. And that's sad because that means I'd probably never actually get to meet her. But it hasn't happened yet, and I think she's back in the States now. So maybe one day. I'm gonna wait for that day. All right, so that was infrastructure, people to some extent, food, public transportation. I am not going to talk about my first impressions of the housing as much because, as I've said before, we're really, really fortunate in where we live, and it is not a common style of living here. We are in a high-rise. We are in a 4-bedroom, and as I've said, that is a rarity for Americans here, and I don't know, it's beautiful. But I will say my first impression of our landlady has been an absolute treat to watch from a cultural standpoint. I think to a large degree she's very typical kind of Korean elderly lady. She's very concerned about us taking care of her apartment, not for any particular reason, not because we're dirty people or anything else. She just is really not good with change, and her last tenants were here for 7 years. So I think it's really hard for her to think of a new family living here, especially with a really young son, because you never know. They're kind of wild cards. So, and we do have a dog as well, which I will absolutely talk about our experience getting our dog here. If people are interested in hearing about that, I can tell you it is harrowing to say the least, and I never hope to repeat it. It's been awful. We've been here over 3 months, and our dog is maybe getting here on Friday. We'll have to see. It's ridiculous. There's just so much that has to be done. And Korea is actually an easy country to get pets into. And it's still been this difficult. Mostly because we came in the summer. And most airlines will not fly animals overseas if it is more than 85 degrees on the tarmac. Which, if you're from most states in the U.S., it's going to be more than that on any given summer day. So we've had to wait a really long time to get our dog here. The other complicating factor with that is that we have a Rottweiler, which is a restricted breed. So Korean Air does not fly Rottweilers. American Airlines won't fly any dog that is over 100 pounds, which almost any Rottweiler will be, unless it's a really small female maybe. Our dog is just over that at 107, but they also count the crate in the overall weight. So the crate's like probably 10 to 15 pounds at least, because we have to get the biggest one. So that's been an experience in and of itself. But other first impressions of Korea. First impressions of Yongsan. It's an army installation. It's an army garrison, so that means it's really big. And because it's going to be closing in the next couple of years, it is a little bit on the run-down side. So expect that if you're going to be at the garrison. Humphreys, on the other hand, which is where we are moving to in a couple of years, is brand new. I mean, the installations and facilities there should be no problem whatsoever, except for there might not be enough of them because it's going to be so many people. But I can't really speak to Humphreys yet because I haven't been. And once I do, I can definitely post about that if people are interested in knowing. If a lot of people are watching my channel who don't care about the army posts and things like that, then I won't worry about posting about that. But if people are interested in that, then I'd be happy to give my impressions of that. Yongsan is, as a garrison, very old. It has been here basically for the last 80 some years in some fashion or another. Most of the buildings, not most, some of the buildings that are still standing and still occupied were built by the Japanese when they occupied Korea. So that's how old we're talking about, pre-Korean War. So that makes for kind of not so pretty buildings. Osan, on the other hand, which I've only been to once, is an Air Force base, right? And it is much newer, nicer, well kept. It feels like America, whereas Yongsan, it definitely feels foreign. So there's kind of a difference there. Again, just my impressions. People might get totally different impressions. The Dragon Hill Lodge, which is the big hotel, the temporary lodging facility that you stay in when you first come here, we stayed there for 3 weeks. At first, I was really reticent to stay there. I was like, oh, I don't want to live in a hotel. I just want to get in. I want to get settled. I want to get my house. As soon as we were starting the process of leaving the Dragon after 3 weeks and going to our apartment, I instantly missed it because they really think of every last detail that could be useful. You can tell that they really take pains to think about people who are in that flux type of time frame in their lives, people that have children, people that, you know, are working all day, and I don't know, they really think about it, and you can get very comfortable there, which is why they put a time limit on the amount of time you can spend in the Dragon, because you can start to get mighty comfortable living right in the middle of Post, being able to walk everywhere. It's a pretty nice situation. Plus, there's like 7 restaurants at the Dragon Hill, and they're all pretty good. I mean, nothing crazy, but definitely passable. I can speak more about that kind of stuff if you guys want to hear it. If not, I'm just going to move on. Other first impressions of Korea. What I've seen of Korea so far, it's a beautiful country. Seoul is right in the middle of quite a few mountains, so depending on where you're looking and where your view is, you can see gorgeous mountains. Hiking is the national pastime of Koreans, which is fantastic. You will see them every weekend. If you ride the subway or anything like that, you'll see, particularly the older generation of Koreans, all decked out in their hiking garb and ready to like get to whatever mountain they want to climb that day. I have seen people definitely at great-grandparent age still hiking. It's phenomenal because I just don't think that we really have that kind of drive and ambition for outdoor exercise when Americans tend to get to that age. I mean, I'm talking like 80s and 90s. I saw them out hiking. I'd be happy to talk more about that too. We've hiked Namsan Tower twice, once in the rain and once not in the rain. I think you can guess which one was preferable. They were both fun, but once you get to the top of Namsan Tower, you get there for the view, and if it's raining and there's cloud cover everywhere, you have no view. So I definitely recommend doing it on a nice clear day. I am not really happy with how much smog is here. It's not nearly as bad as Beijing, which I have also been to. Beijing is an extreme, though, right, in terms of just terrible pollution. Here it does get pretty bad too, and you feel it like allergies. Like you'll start to sneeze and cough and things like that, and that's called yellow dust, and that mostly comes from China. Because Korea is a peninsula right off of China, so a lot of that gross pollution that comes from China just wafts right over to Seoul because Seoul is right there on the coast. So we do have kind of bad days where that's concerned. No one in my family has had any reaction to it that's been unfavorable besides just the occasional sneeze and cough. And as I mentioned, I do have a young son. He does not seem to be really affected by it so far, but we are going to invest in quite a few nice air purification systems throughout our house just to be on the safe side. With a child that young, you really don't want them to develop anything like asthma or anything like that. And so we really don't want to roll the dice on that. So we are going to be investing in some of that pretty soon here. So that's definitely what I would consider a drawback. You will see it. There are some days where it just looks like the entire city is covered in fog, but it's not fog. So it's kind of gross when you think about it. But I personally just like to think that it's fog and move on about my day. So that's my general first impressions of Korea since I've been living here. I'm sure there's a lot more things that I'm just not thinking of. But it is a big city. It's a lot of people living here. I don't have the exact figures in front of me. I can absolutely get them for you guys. But many, many, many millions. And you do feel that sometimes, but where we live, thankfully, is so close to base that our commute is about 5 minutes driving. And it would be about 15 minutes walking to post. So we don't really feel that like heavy soul congestion that a lot of people feel because we don't have a commute that takes us, through a winding path through Seoul. So obviously the farther out, the more of that you would have to experience. But I mean, it is a great big mega city. But in my opinion, they have the infrastructure to accommodate that many people. And I really think that they do a very good job of doing that. Oh, another first impression. They hate to use energy, and they are huge recyclers. I have never seen a culture that was this into recycling. And you know how Europe's pretty big into that sort of thing, being very green, biking instead of taking the car, all that kind of stuff. But like they are legit about it. You will get fined if you do not separate out. And I think we have 5 different containers. The only thing that we put into the garbage: diapers, dryer lint, and other things that just don't have a place, but everything else is recycled, including food. You have to actually put it in bags and weigh it, and then you're charged based on how much weight there is. So in our case, our landlady is charged, not us. But it's an insane process, and every high-rise has a whole recycling center down below that you sort everything out, and if you don't do it properly, and they do have video cameras, then you can be fined for not doing it correctly. And that's a Seoul-wide, that's not just our apartment complex. So that's another first impression. They are very serious about that. You'll see in the subways sometimes they will actually they'll actually turn off the power and coast so that they can save energy. It's kind of like putting the car in neutral and going down a hill so you don't have to waste gas. It's kind of that same concept. So like in the subway, or in the Ko-Rail, which is like the Korean like above ground trains, they will actually like shut it down and just coast into the station so they can save power. So they are very, very serious about that. Probably because of the recycling thing and just the saving energy part, but also because energy is crazy expensive here. In the United States, we have no problem whatsoever leaving our AC on during the day, even if there's minimal people. Here, if you did that, you would be looking at, for an apartment our size, we gauged and we put into our rent $600 per month for utilities. If we didn't watch all of our usage, there is a very, very good chance that we could go over that. And there's just 2 adults and 1 baby. So it is definitely something to consider, especially if you're going to be negotiating rent, to make sure to put, I know people who've put $1,000 a month into their rent just to make sure that they're covered. We're up on the 34th floor, so during the winter, allegedly, I haven't lived through the winter yet, but during the winter, we will not have to really use our heat very much because all the ambient heat from below will come up and kind of heat our our apartment, and they don't really have heating systems here. They have in-floor heating. That's what they use. There's not vents, like forced air like we have in the States. So they just heat the floors, and then that kind of just makes everything warmer, which is, it's an interesting concept. So I'll let you know how that goes. But everything else is air conditioning units in every single room that are built into the ceilings. Or some apartments have them as like standalone, almost like tower air conditioning units. I've not seen those before Korea, so I know that our work at least has a lot of those. But anyway, I've been going on for 25 minutes now, so it's time for me to wrap it up and go get some dinner. I am so excited to be sharing all this information with you. I really, really hope that it's useful and that I'm not just talking to the universe with nobody caring or listening, because this really is for you. So that's all I have for right now. Please comment below. Let me know what you think. I'm more than happy to take requests. Just type down there. And I will see you guys next time. Mama Broad out. Bye.